It's certainly been a tumultuous few months for the Abbott government. Public opposition and dissent on the crossbenchers have forced a series of backflips on major policies, from the unpopular GP co-payment to paid parental leave. Tonight, the government has suffered another major defeat, with the Senate voting against its controversial higher education reforms, which were designed to deregulate fees to allow universities to charge more. Joining me now in our Canberra studio are Independent Senator Jacqui Lambie and Liberal Democrat David Leyonhjelm. Senator Lambie voted against the bill. Senator Leyonhjelm voted with the government. Firstly, to you both, thank you for coming in. Senator Lambie, first off, I need to ask you, how are you? You discharged yourself from hospital to be here for this vote.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I'm good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So that's the way it is. But I'm very glad that the vote's been taken and it's over.
Why did you vote it down? I
voted down firstly because they didn't take it to the people in the election. So for me, that was the most important thing. They never went out. They didn't sell it. They didn't sell it well. And I just can't stand by the deregulation. I know the University of Tasmania doesn't want the deregulation going on in Tasmania, so I have to vote with how I feel with Tasmania. But I think it's also, it's also
I have to pick you up on that point, because all the Vice-Chancellors, bar one here in Canberra, wanted this to go through.
Yeah, I think they want reform, but what I'm hearing is they didn't ask for deregulation, so I'm going to double check on that. But I'll also say this. They were put in a very difficult position when it comes to those Vice-Chancellors. They didn't know whether it was going to go through or whether it wasn't. So their point to me is, Jacqui, if it looks like you're going to lose out and it doesn't look like it looks like the deregulation is going to go through, then please grab us what you can for the university to be sustainable, whether that's the $400 million that they're looking for infrastructure, or whatever it takes, and uncapping the associate degrees, which, by the way, those uncapping...
I need to come to Senator Leyonhjelm there for a tick. You were unsure about this bill yesterday. When I spoke to you yesterday, you said if it came to today, I'd vote it down. You changed your mind and you supported the government. Mm-hmm. Why?
I had discussions with the Minister, Christopher Pyne, this morning. My concern, if you recall, was the cost to taxpayers of the HEX system and the proportion that would be unpaid or not repaid. So what we came up with was a plan to make the educational institutions, the colleges and universities, accountable in a small way, not enormously, but in a small way accountable for repayment of HEX loans.
Make sure they had skin in the game.
That's right, so they had skin in the game. So the objective was that they wouldn't be selling students on courses for which there's no career prospects, there's no benefit for the students to do those courses, but they would be funded by loans which would never get repaid, and the taxpayer would be on the hook for those loans. So that was my primary concern. As you know, I'm essentially in favour of deregulation of most things. Yeah. That's what my party is about. And so deregulating university fees seemed to me to be not an issue. There is an issue now in that domestic students are now disadvantaged relative to international students. So we can't leave the situation as it is, so that the government will have to come back to it before too long. Yeah.
Is there any way that you would embrace deregulation at all, Jacqui Lambie?
No, absolutely not. I won't embrace that whatsoever. I just think that's knocking the tip of the iceberg off, just like it is with our Medicare system when they try to bring in the GP co-payment, and I'm not going to have it go on.
OK, you called for the minister's sacking yesterday, or for him to resign. Why? He's only carrying out government policy.
Well, do you know what? I think it's pretty poor government policy that he's carrying out. That's the first thing. He's already been told. He's been told many times how to front this, and the way to do this is what the crossbenchers have asked is, please bring in all the Vice-Chancellors, let's sit on it for the year and take it to the next election. But what's he want to do? He wants to continually rush it through. He's blackmailed us on quite a few issues related to that. That's the other issue I have with him. He's put certain, if you don't vote for it, then this is what's going to happen. We're going to take 1,700 research jobs. What sort of man does that? Okay, that's not the way to play the game.
He backed down on that yesterday.
I know he backed down, but you know what? That's the sort of thing you have to put up with, and I don't believe that's fair game, and that's not the way to do things in politics. You know what? If you're so good, then take it to the election, and something, especially when it comes to educating our children, take it to the next election, set it at the election, and see how you go with that.
Senator Leyonhjelm, how do you think the minister's gone about his job?
I don't have any complaints. He's not the best of the ministers that I deal with, but he's far from the worst as well. I get on fine with him, and I tend not to personalise my politics unless they do first, and even then I may not personalise it. So my relationship with him is fine. I would point out, I suppose, that the 3 crossbench senators who voted with the government all engaged with the minister and all got something for their negotiations.
And that was Senator Bob Day and also John Madigan.
We all got something that addressed our concerns. All I do is make the observation that the other crossbench senators who voted against that sort of dealt themselves out of something. Now this is going to have to be this issue of
it will have to be revisited.
You know, we have already made progress from my point of view in terms of the HEX loans. Bob Day and John Madigan both feel they achieved something. I think, you know, I prefer to take an engagement approach and see what I can get.
How do you think Christopher Pyne could get other crossbenchers like Jacqui Lambie across the line? And I'll ask you too, and Jacqui, about how you think you could vote for this.
I actually have discussed this with Mr Pyne, how he could get a better result dealing with the crossbench. There are some, like Jacqui, who are just simply opposed to deregulation per se, and they're never going to vote for it no matter what he does or says. But there are others who are not necessarily opposed to deregulation, but they're just concerned about some of the details. What I think he needs to do is engage with each of us individually, address our individual concerns, in the same way that I suppose Scott Morrison did on the immigration bill. He dealt with each of us individually, he got to know the sort of things that bugged us about his legislation, and he dealt with them. And those of us who engaged with him, we got something as a result.
All right. Senator Lambie, Universities Australia, which represents all the universities around Australia, has said that saying no is no way forward for this, and they don't want it taken to an election and made an election issue because they don't want it turned into a political football. Their words are a Frankenstein byproduct of pre-election positioning. They don't want that at all. So are you willing at all to negotiate with them to come to an agreement before taking it to the next poll, because universities are looking for certainty for next year?
You know, and the crossbenchers have said that. They're happy to sit in with the whole 42 or 41 vice-chancellors, how many there is, and sit down and discuss this with them. But you know what? These are supposed to be the brains of the country. Why are we telling them how the universities should be run? So it's about time they stood up, they stood tall, and they helped come up with the solution. But the other problem is spending 0.6% of our GDP on our higher education is just not enough. Even back in 1995, we were spending 0.9%. So I say, let's at least spend 1% of our GDP. Let's get these associate degrees uncapped. We've got problems out there with unemployment. These kids would love to go to university for 2 years. It'd be very encouraging to see these kids go to university for 2 years. And they may even say, you know what, I've been here for 2, I'm going to finish it off and I'm going to get my degree. But I just think that's a much more encouraging way to go, and this is the way we need to go. Now, you know, I just want to make sure that when it comes to those associate degrees, that Labor put a disallowance instrument in. That's how those associate degrees were capped. I would like to see Labor now support me. I'm going to put a disallowance motion through and uncap these associate degrees. This is what I want to see. This is a way forward.
Okay. On the government handling in the Senate, the Prime Minister told a meeting of the Joint Party Room today that the Senate crossbench were ferals. How do you respond to that? Do you feel like ferals?
I am actually a little bit over being treated as some kind of third party or fourth party. You know, we are a really diverse group of individuals on the crossbench. We don't meet regularly, we don't caucus, we don't compare notes with each other. We are not an alternative party, and to treat us in some kind of group manner like that, it's actually annoying. You know, Jacqui and I have come at things from quite different philosophies. Bob Day and I agree on a lot of things, but not everything. We are a really divergent group of people. We are individuals, really, 8 individuals now that Glenn Lazarus has left the Palm United Party. And the Prime Minister needs, and the government need to start treating us all as separate individuals with no commonality other than the fact that we all have a vote on the crossbench. That's the only thing that binds us.
Senator Lambie?
Well, I think this, obviously, if the man's coming out and saying that, which I find absolutely quite disturbing and really disrespectful to the crossbenchers, is he's now getting desperate. He knows he's under fire and he's feeling it. So who would say that? I mean, he's got to work with the 8 crossbenchers that are sitting there. Why would a man go and say this? Just keeps putting his foot in his mouth.
Now, before we go, Senator Leyonhjelm, I need to ask you about our lead item tonight. I know that you weren't privy to all that was in that report, but people calling for more gun control laws, stricter laws around gun clubs and shooting ranges. What's your inclination there?
I've been a member of a pistol club now for 30 years, I think, or over 30 years. And the current situation with visitors coming on and trying shooting is as tight as I've ever known it to be in that period. It's very strictly controlled. It's one-on-one. People do have to sign a declaration. So, it's difficult to imagine how you could make it any tighter. The other side of it, and have any practical benefit at least, the other side of it is that you do need to acknowledge that people who are determined to kill themselves will find a way one way or another. Tragedies like that are hard to avert just by removing one means. There's always other means available to them, and the psychologists tell me at least that if someone is determined to end their life, they'll find a way to do it, and if they don't do it with a firearm, they'll do it some other method.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you both for coming in and talking to 7:30 tonight.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much.